Yep.
Wonderful. No mai haere mai. Welcome to this meeting of the Central Otago District Council, the first one for 2026, which is very exciting to be here ready to go for yet another year where we have a lot on and we're busy, but I think we will be very excited to be making decisions for and on behalf of and with our communities. So first up, we have someone scheduled for the karakia. Good day. Thought you had worship with the mayor design, but I didn't check that. Apologies. I would hate to start off the year with an improper karakia. Kia hora te marino, kia whakapapa panamo te moana. Kei huarahi mā tātou I tēnei rā. Aroha atu, aroha mai, tātou kia tātou katoa. Omie huie ai. May peace be widespread. May the sea be like greenstone, a pathway for us all this day. Give love, receive love. Let us show respect for each other. Join, gather, unite. I think it's definitely how we intend to run our day today. Apology this morning from Nathan McLean. I forgot to tell you, Wayne, but I think you figured that out when I took away his nameplate. I'm happy to move that. Tracy's happy to second the apologies be received. And we move into our first public forum of the year and welcome someone that I don't believe has joined before us, but he will be familiar to many, Peter Newport from Crux. Please come on up to the table. You're welcome to have a seat.
Thank you. And I'd also like to introduce Jodie Walters, who's joining me today. Would you like to come? Jodie won't be saying as much as me today, but the reason she's here is she's just joined Crux on the business side. So we'll be talking today not just about local journalism and some quite dramatic developments, but also our plans to expand and improve our coverage of Alex and Cromwell. We understand that I've got 5 minutes. I try and keep that down to 3 or 4 minutes. And then we're very comfortable answering questions. So I'll kick off, but I'll be editing this as I go, trying to make it shorter, more interesting. But for those who don't know me at all, I'm the founding editor of Crux in Queenstown. We launched in 2018. I'm an experienced journalist. I am from Wellington originally, but after working for Alan Brady, in fact, in Wellington, in Dunedin, he was my editor at the old television New Zealand, which was then NZBC, and we flew all over this district in helicopters in the Muldoon days, getting criticised for wasting money. But from New Zealand, I went on to work for Australian television, channels 9 and 10, and then I worked with ITN, the British Commercial News Network in Hong Kong during the Tiananmen Square massacre, and was the first Western journalist to be expelled from China. I then worked for about 19 years in London, producing documentaries and running a variety of media businesses. So long story short, I came to Queenstown as Radio New Zealand's local journalist and founded Crux because I could see that local news was in trouble. And that's really what we're here to talk about today. So from that rather dramatic background, Crux is quietly, it's had its ups and downs, but where we sit now is that we have 45,000 unique readers. And for those of you who are not familiar with internet data, a unique reader is exactly what it sounds like. It's somebody who we know is unique because they use the same IP address. So out of a population in Cromwell, Wanaka and Queenstown, we think there's about 60,000 adults, and 45,000 of those people read our content every month. We have over 1 million views on Facebook. We're not huge fans of Facebook, but you have to be part of that ecosystem. Almost 500,000 of those people engage with our content. And that's part of a business funnel that drives people to our website and to our Substack platform. And as you'll discover, modern news is very scientific. It's all about the numbers. And we think in the end that comes down to ratepayer value. So the reason I mentioned my background is that what we're trying to champion is, I suppose, democracy, truth, and honesty in local news. That, for reasons that you probably will understand, is quite a difficult thing, because if you work in a small community, holding somebody to account isn't comfortable because you're going to see them in the supermarket. You're going to walk past them in the road. It's very difficult. You've got to be prepared to be unpopular. And one of the definitions of news that I like, in fact, there are two that I like. One is news is whatever is extraordinary, simple, single word. And the other is that news is something that someone somewhere doesn't want you to publish. Otherwise, it's just marketing. So those are both interesting definitions of what news is, because we get lots of experts saying that ain't news. And in fact, I think criticising journalists should be an Olympic sport because it has such a wide following and so much emotion, it couldn't fail. Look, the reason I'm here today is that we're very excited that you have a new mayor in Tama and we have a new mayor in Queenstown. And I see that as a real change in the way our communities operate. I don't think it's a reason for us to throw out what went before, but I think it is a reason for us to start to leave behind the days when the loudest voice or the richest voice ran a community. I think those days, thankfully, are either gone or on the way out. So Crux now needs to become more sustainable, more businesslike. We recently covered the sewage crisis in Queenstown that many of you will be aware of. And I was on an overseas trip last year where I had the chance to speak to a lot of news bosses in London and America. And I said, what would happen if somebody on a local news platform published video of a pipe spewing semi-treated sewage into a public park and then into a protected river? How long would that stay a hidden story? How long would it be before the other local media picked it up? How long would it be before national media picked it up? And the general consensus was about 4 to 8 hours. In Queenstown, for 5 months, our local newspaper worked with the council to keep that quiet. And I don't think it's an accident that our local Queenstown Lakes District Council pays 200 grand a year to that same newspaper. In other words, you can't have local news that is beholden to advertisers. And we've come up with a plan, which is in the early days, of how local news could be better organised and more democratic and independent, better funded. And we're having a local news summit on March the 10th and 11th. We know the 11th is a council day here, at Rod Drury's conference facility near Queenstown. And I've been lucky enough to be able to invite some of the top people in New Zealand media and from overseas as well. Just overnight, I heard from the BBC's head of their local democracy service, which has 1,600 reporters. He's got permission to fly to Queenstown and be part of that conference. So we need to front foot this problem. We need to front foot the fact that whether we like it or not, print is on its way out. It's too expensive. It just doesn't work because of the collapse of the advertising market. We want to work with CODC to introduce you to modern communications. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way. It's changed so quickly that it's very hard for councils to talk to their ratepayers. Really tough.
Peter, is it your 5 minutes? So if you could give the highlights from the rest, that would be great. And
I'm terrible.
Take questions. I
was going to have my phone with a little countdown. But look, you get the idea. We've got an answer which we'd like to invite you to be part of with the mayor and selected councillors. Jody wants to work with you on some campaigns and communicating with your ratepayers. We're open for questions, but basically we want to have part of your marketing budget. But what we want to offer you is a much different way of measuring performance, reach and engagement. And that's, I think, what the ratepayers would expect.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Peter? Thank you. I look forward to hearing some more details from you in relation to the summit that you're looking to set up. So
excellent. And one thing we just ask is that we could get for Jody the right people to talk to about communications and marketing and that type of thing, probably from Wayne. Yes.
Certainly. Are you happy to send that information through? Yes, that can come directly to you. Thank you. And then our next public forum speaker is Jill Booth to talk about the hall in the Teviot. Jill is also a Teviot Valley Community Board member. Welcome, Jill. 2026.
It's going to be a good year. Now, the reason I'm here today, obviously, is the rebuild of the town hall in Roxburgh, Entertainment Centre in Roxburgh. Early November, I did a straw poll, 3 days sitting out in the street, just talking to people about what they wanted. So out of the 77 people that responded, 66 want what they had built back where it was. About 11 wanted to investigate another site. I heard later on through somebody that's involved with RECEP that the council poll was running at around 94 people wanting to build back where it was and 6 people wanting to investigate. Then that changed to just over 50% of people wanting to build back, and it was 40% that wanted to investigate a new site. And now at the meeting that Mark Jessup spoke to a couple of weeks ago, it's an 80-20 split of building back on a new site and 20% wanting to stay on the same site. So I'm wondering where those figures come from. And I'm wondering if a youth vote has been brought in through the school.
Is that the end of your, is there anything else you want? Otherwise we can move to the questions.
I just want to know how this vote has changed so substantially.
The online poll was 95.5 prior to our public meeting on the, remind me what day that meeting was?
Hang on.
It
So
was about the 18th or something, wasn't it?
It was before then.
I can't remember.
Before that meeting, it was 95.5. That was
95 to build back.
95% versus 5, and not around building, just investigating. Post that meeting on the Thursday night through to the poll closing Monday morning is when it's changed, and it was largely because people had heard from us directly and had a say.
Well, nobody I've spoken to is happy with it. Everybody, and that's why I'm here. Everybody has questioned it, that we've now done this huge flip to you know, because what we need, it's nearly a year now, and we need our town hall back. And the consensus with most people is that they just want the same thing built back where it was.
The recommendation came to this council from the community board that you were a part of, that passed the recommendation to come to council to ask to investigate other sites.
Now that's true, but that was not quite put when we did that at community board. Now I was one of the people that voted that if we, you know, to explore, to have that money set aside to explore. But like I said, when I came to speak at the last council meeting, was that it never occurred to anybody that that money was going to be spent before there was a general consensus from the town, and there still has been no full vote. And that's what irritates me. So in my last 3 years as a community board, we've said to council quite often, if you want to reach people in the Teviot Valley, you put a piece of paper in their letterbox, because doing it online is not good because everybody doesn't participate. So the voting thing is not about the outcome, it's about everybody having an equal opportunity to be able to put something down and get it back to council, back into a drop box. And in our valley, doing it through an online poll is not the way to reach people.
There was
Every
hard
time
copy
council-
submissions at the eyesight in Roxbury. You got
It was
20,
a
25.
Dropbox. Yeah, it was one drop box. I've done drop boxes before in Roxburgh and they work really well, but you've got to spread them out.
Just to your point on the spending money, in the community board paper from November that you voted for, the financial considerations outlined there will be an expected cost of $20,000 to $40,000.
Yeah, that's right. So that was okay to have that money set aside, but it never occurred to me that that money would be spent before there was a full valley-wide vote on whether we even look at exploring new options. You know, and to go ahead and start spending money before there's been a full valley-wide, a properly conducted vote, to me seems ludicrous.
Well, there has, Jill, and some of the challenges around consultation with our communities is that it's not like a national election vote. We can't make people give us some feedback. We provide the opportunity, and we've provided it in person, online, and via the drop boxes for them to come and have their say. And if they choose not to, that's actually okay. But the community board made a recommendation to the council that had a $20,000 to $40,000 price tag attached to it to explore other sites, which we have then passed in line with the community board wishes. That is not a guarantee that the town hall would go to a different site. And there is another public meeting coming up on the 5th of February that we would encourage as many people as possible to come along to. So there's certainly no foregone conclusions or any decisions made to move it. There was a decision made to potentially explore some other options in line with some in the community's wishes. And we have heard from a number of people, and whether it's 5% or whether it's 50%, there are some people who would like to explore that, as did the community board. So I think then say, no, we didn't get the result that I wanted to get. We're going to ask
this
again,
isn't
would be
about,
very dangerous.
this is not about getting a wanted result. I mean, to me, it's no skin off my nose whether we put the community, whether we put the hall somewhere else or not. It's just that when you just do an online or a one drop box, does not give everybody the full opportunity.
Well, it's
and that's
online
because of
and a
the-
Dropbox and an in-person.
That's because the statistics of our valley.
Yeah, and we are not in a position to send a letter to every resident of the Teviot Valley at $3 per letter.
Well,
That would be half of your $20,000 to $40,000 gone.
I do it for $50. I mean, I've done it myself for $50. That's what it has cost me. You know, so I can do it.
Place for the community to come and continue to give feedback as in the public meetings that the steering group have committed to holding. The 5th of February would be the place for people to
We're
come.
very aware of the need to hear from people, and that's why we're holding another public meeting very close to the last one, even though we don't have a lot to update on. But we're aware that people like the in-person form of communication, and that's what we're set about delivering.
So a lot of people couldn't make it to the last meeting, but I am happy at my own expense to put a piece of paper in everybody's letterbox and give them 2 weeks to get them back. It does work well in the valley. It works really well. Works better than
I
doing
think
it
you're welcome
online.
to encourage people to attend the 5th meeting, Jill,
Here,
but it's not.
well,
Yeah, if you could let people know there's a meeting coming on the 5th, and that would be the appropriate place for them to come. And if they can't make it, there will be an update that goes out in the bulletin and online to make sure that people do know what's happening.
I'd still like to know if the youth vote has been involved, if we've got kids of 14.
I don't think we did
16
separate out a
throughout
youth vote
full-
on that, did we? No.
There's absolutely no youth vote.
There's a report on the project page of rural development. There's a hard copy in the service centre as well.
Cool.
What we can do,
Yep.
that's a good idea.
Yep. Okay.
Where do you think it should go?
I don't think we need to cover that off at the
look,
moment, Stu. Sorry, Jill. I'm sure you've got
to
an
be
opinion
quite
on that, but we'll
I
leave
will
that for
answer
another day.
that. I will answer that. If there wasn't the historic thing to the hall, I'd put it up by the bowling green. It's a fabulous place up there. It's right next to the playground. You've got the golf course. You could have an awesome indoor, outdoor. You know, again too, like possibly picking up the goldfields, because the goldfields is awesome historic build. It's beautiful and could be incorporated. But we do have that hiccup with the historic site in Roxburgh, and that is probably, in all truthfulness, a lot of the tripping point and where a lot of the emotion comes from. It's our little valley imploded on their Facebook page. You know, and things got really, really heated, and we heard nothing from council.
And I think it is important that the Teviot Valley Community Board and the steering group are leading that conversation, and council is a.
It got really nasty.
Yeah.
And we
Thank you.
recognise that, and that's why we're about to hold a second public meeting.
Yep.
It's shortly after the last one.
Yeah, no, that's cool. Awesome.
Jill,
That's it. Thank you
for
very
coming
much.
up to be with us today, and we will see you at the first meeting of the new year.
I'll be online.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
That brings us to the end of our public forum, and we move to confirmation of minutes, which begin on page 7. Somebody is happy to move that those be, thank you, Tracy, and seconded. Sarah, all in favour? Against? Carried. Declarations of interest begin on page 19. Just a reminder to be vigilant and stand aside from decision-making when a conflict arises between your role as a member and any private or other external interests they might have. Is there anything that anybody wants noted for today, Tracy?
Yes, I have item number 26.1.18.
Thank you. And you'll be leaving the room for that
I
one?
will be leaving.
It's wonderful. Thank you. If you can note that, please, Wayne. We now move to our first community board chair update. Welcome, Jayden Fong, Chair of the Vincent Community Board.
Done. Shouldn't say this, but I am going to. As the young elected members rep on LGNZ's Community Board Executive Committee, I just want to say that I think this council does a very good job when it's engaging with young people. And so I would encourage you to keep doing that the way you've been doing it.
Thank you.
Now, formally as the chair of the VCB, it's actually been quite a busy time over the break. The VCB has been communicating a lot since we had our strategic planning session at the end of last year in December, I believe. The board made the decision earlier this week to actually meet informally and finish off that work because of things like the museum strategy already been on your agenda. We thought we could wait for the formal process or we could be proactive and get on with it. So that's what we chose to do. So part of that, the VCB has three of its main priorities this year around Central Stories and Clyde Museum and advocating and working with council when it comes to that museum strategy so that we can do what we can to protect those important stories in the history of the Vincent Ward. And that will be led by Martin and Tony. Another important one for us was looking at options for a replacement for Wastebusters at the end of Boundary Road, which I'm quite happy to be leading the charge on that one. And the third one was around better engagement with our community. And so we've agreed on a few steps on how we're going to achieve that. The first one, for those that haven't heard, the Vincent Community Board for the remainder of this term has set its first meeting of each year in Omakau and its second meeting in Clyde. So that means that for this year, I did write the dates down, that will be next Tuesday, the 3rd of February in Omakau at the Rugby Club Rooms, and then hopefully next year in the new Community Hub. I'm lifting Paddy for that one. And then we will be in Clyde at the Clyde Museum on Blythe Street on the 17th of March at 10 a.m. So it'd be great if any of you want to join us for those. I think it's a really great opportunity to be getting out into our smaller communities and rural spaces and hearing from them so they're not always having to travel to us. Another part of that better engagement is we have also agreed to make some changes to our liaison roles. So moving forward, we are keeping liaison roles for our two museums and for Community House, and we'll actually be pulling back on the other ones and instead replacing them with meetings that we're going to be having throughout the year with different interest groups and sectors of our community. And so that's going to be led by Jim and Carla. We'll give it 12 months, we'll see how it goes. If it works really well, then that's something we'd like to continue. If it doesn't, we're happy to put our hands up and say, okay, we gave it a go, didn't work, we'll go back to the old system. But we're really hoping that we get really good engagement from the community on that. And it's just a way to kind of spread out beyond just the traditional groups that we have always liaised with. Our new members have settled in really well. They've been really engaging and energetic, and we're really looking forward to the next 12 months and working with you all. And I see on the agenda there's some exciting things coming up around reserves and things, so we're ready for those. So that excites me. But yeah, that's going to be a good 12 months.
Thank you very much. Has anybody got any questions for Jayden?
You said we engage well with the young. Do we engage well with the old?
I think you do. If you look at your, whenever you consult, if you look at the age bracket, it's always predominantly older. I think it's probably the middle we all have to work on.
In regards to can you just go back to what the Jim and Carla are going to be driving? Can you explain that a little bit further? Is that just going into more community groups as opposed to
So what we're looking at doing is actually having meetings throughout the year with different, like, so we might say, I think one of Carla's ideas was around faith-based groups. So we could go and have a public meeting with them. And then there could be groups in social services that we decide, instead of just sitting as a liaison on one or two, let's actually have a proper meeting and get as many around the table as we possibly can and drive it that way.
We'll be keen to hear how it goes. And it is totally worthwhile trying different things. So good on you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. We are now moving to the Korowai evaluation report, which will generate a lot of interest, I reckon, from all the people watching online. Amelia joins us in person, and hopefully we've got Elke. Not online yet.
No.
Okay, sorry, Amelia. We might pause you momentarily.
Yes, I think we should be in 3 minutes. They said they'd be ready at 11. Do you want me to introduce it or do you want to?
Because I know they are in between. We have Elke Thompson and Mark Abbott from Te Korowai joining us online in between getting off a flight and getting into another meeting. So I think maybe we should start, just in case, on the very slim chance that their flight with the national carrier was not on time. Maybe we should get going, and if you could do the introduction and then.
Yeah, absolutely. I did have an email confirmation from Elke that they had both landed. So very luckily, because we do know that they're both on separate flights as well. So just to add extra fun. I'll just give a brief overview as well for our newer elected members who weren't part of the Te Korowai process. So Te Korowai was formerly Council Mark. So it's an external evaluation through LGNZ that come and look at the council's performance. So what happened last year was we completed a written submission, answered lots of questions, gave lots of evidence for how well we were doing across the 4 properties. And then 2 assessors came in along with Elke, the programme manager, in August, and they had in-person interviews with staff, elected members, including community board members, members of the community and people from business groups, external stakeholders like ORC and NZTA Whakatahi. So over the 2 days, they really did get around quite a few different people. And after that, they took all the information away and completed their assessment and had a hui with a whole panel of assessors. So it's not just the views of the 2 assessors, it's a whole panel that finalise our outcome. So, as I mentioned, there are 4 priority areas, and they are capital delivery and service delivery, as well as governance, leadership, and what the other word?
Strategy.
Thank you. I've lost my tab. And community and engagement, and financial management and transparency. So across the majority, we got the rating Mauri 2, so that were priority areas 1, 2 and 3. So that's the governance, the finance and the capital and service. And across priority 4, we were given Mauri Ora, which is the top rating. So overall, we got Mauri 2, which is really positive. But from that, what happens is we have the next steps, which hopefully Elke and Mark will come and talk to us about. We will have a session, so a workshop with Elke and Mark, who was not one of our assessors. He's actually a consultant for business improvement. And what they will do is come up with an action plan to work on our areas for improvement. So we would like to get a steer from this group as to where you see the value lying with that workshop. They can be very flexible with that. So it can be just staff, just elected members, a mix of staff and elected members. So hopefully before they arrive, if you've got any particular views on whether that should be staff, just yourselves, or a mixture of both, that would be really handy to know.
before we consider that, I wondered if you could just cover off the performance markers and maybe go through what each of them are and what it means. Just because people might not be familiar with Māori order.
Yes, sorry,
And
absolutely.
Some of the other words are quite inspiring.
So there are 4 ratings. The first one is Māori Mo, which is inactive, and then Māori Oho, which is aware, Māori 2, which is active. That's what we got overall, and Māori Ora, which is thriving. So really positive to have that second highest rating, so active. And it does mean that we've got a good foundation to work from as well to improve if we choose to do this again. So that would be around 3 years' time to make a decision as to whether we revisit the process and hopefully see some improvement and increases in score. So yes, you get the individual rating for each priority and the overall. Does that cover it off?
Yes, it does. Thank you. Stu, did you have a question?
Not really.
No? Oh,
I just think that I wasn't in favour of this at all when we got pushed into by some of the ratepayers who are not happy with council performance. Because I felt that the result that we've got is what we were always going to do, and we're always making constant change. And I think it's been fantastic that it's showing how good we have been. But I'm not sure I've been a fan of it, you know. I think we've done a good job. It was hard on staff and councillors because people were trying to look for faults, I felt, and it's not there. It's good.
we have Elka online now, and I think she's in the same place as Mark, so hopefully he's there as well. Wonderful. Welcome. Good morning, guys.
Morena koutou. Thanks for having us this morning, and sorry about the background. We're just en route at this time. It's nice to see some of you that I've met before, and to the new ones, just wanted to say hello, nice to meet you, and congratulations on the elections. Ko wai tēnei, ko Elka Thompson tōku ingoa. My name is Elka Thompson, and I'm the Program Manager of Te Korowai. And today we're just here to give you a quick overview of your evaluations report. And on this note, also big congratulations to your leadership team, to your organisation and your elected members, because it was a very, very positive outcome. And I'm going to hand you over to Mark now. Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning, Council, and thank you for having us. I'm Mark Abbott. I work with Te Korowai in a number of areas, actually, around council performance. Council performance on one hand, and on the other hand, code of conflict resolution and investigations, I hate to tell you. And I'm finding much more work in that space, which is really quite sad. One point that I would like to focus on is, as we came into this conversation, a comment from a councillor around fault finding in this process. And I have to say that the intention of the program, as it's currently shaped and framed, is very much around development, improvement, and looking for what is positive. Certainly ironing out a few challenges and issues as they come about, but it's certainly not. It is certainly no longer about looking at the development or appropriation of fault. In terms of the workshop focus, the report itself has given some fairly good indicators of what potentially council can be looking at in terms of its improvement plan process, and we're very much looking forward to working with council around shaping that up. I wasn't intending to use this morning per se as an opportunity or a vehicle to go through each of those sections, because largely what we will benefit from is a conversation around improvement and development, and coming together cohesively as a well-functioning organisation. So happy to answer any questions, or well, no, I'm going to ask Elka to respond to any questions. Frankly, as the program manager, happy to answer any questions and to give any steer. And certainly keen to know, in addition to the findings from the report, any specific areas that council or council officers would like to delve into in more detail. Particularly conscious that there's a number of new councillors in this tranche, and the establishment and setting of priorities at the outset is obviously quite important, or an important part of the process. So thank you for the opportunity.
Well, thank you very much, Mark. Is there anything you would like to add, Amelia?
I think that covers everything off quite well. Other than, yeah, a really positive report. And quite an enjoyable experience to be part of for what it is. So thank you to LK and her team for making it a really nice, enjoyable process rather than can be quite overwhelming, I imagine.
Look, you should all be very proud of the findings from the report. The assessors that do spend a lot of time evaluating and observing you come from quite a long pedigree of investigative goodness, and from that point of view, they will find some areas for improvement where those are valid. But by and large, the report as it stands is extraordinarily positive, and certainly a great platform for council to build on and develop.
It's very interesting, actually. I think it's overall it's a very good report. The interesting thing is there are 4 stages there, and one of them we were talking about earlier on, communication. And the question was asked, should we actually involve staff and councillors? And I think actually staff and councillors should be involved in that. And although it was a very good report, I think that we can concentrate maybe on communication, because it is something that we've identified as a bit of a problem within council already.
Oh, look, absolutely. I think another interesting way to frame or shape this is that while each of these pillars is very independently assessed and stands alone, the value that comes from the next stages is looking at how they integrate with each other. So absolutely, if it's a focus on communication and engagement that you're looking to see explored, we'll also pick up those threads across the other strands that actually will benefit from a much more cohesive and streamlined engagement and communication process. But you're absolutely right.
Would it be fair to say, Mark, because that's one of the things, unsurprisingly, that councils as a whole generally cop a lot of flack for is communication and engagement with people who don't necessarily feel communicated and engaged with. And I guess given that we do receive some feedback on that, to have seen a rating that is the highest possible rating that you can get in that area, does that mean that, while we still have aspirations to improve on the service that we are offering, that on a whole, from a local government perspective, we are doing quite well in comparison to other councils who have also undertaken this process?
I think you've hit the nail on the head there. Quite frankly, I haven't seen any council over the last decade or decade and a half that scores particularly well with its community in terms of communication, because they're always expecting something better or something different or something more. The ones who remain silent through this process are the ones quite happy and content with council's performance around communication. So it doesn't surprise me that the feedback we get tends to slant towards the more negative in that field. But absolutely right. I think council could invest more, it could spend more, it could enlarge its communications team, and still communities would find some fault with it. And I think at the end of the day, there needs to be some metrical mechanism where council itself says, actually, we think we're doing pretty well in this regard, and those who really matter, and I'm not saying that others don't matter, but those who really matter, i.e. the ones who we're trying to target in terms of a communication push, are the ones that we look for to validate our performance in that area. But you're right. Councils generally, local government generally, that does not typically score well in communications in spite of the investment that they make in it.
I think, yes, there would be an appetite to have elected members as part of that next process as well, because those other priorities are also, very much linked to the work that we undertake. So I think for some or all of us to be involved in that would be wonderful.
Excellent.
Any final questions for Elka, Mark, or Amelia? Perfect. Thank you. It was really great to receive that, and in particular, I did enjoy the fact that it's in a format that can be easily digested by our community. So if they are wanting to read the report, it's not full of, jargon or confusing graphs or, terminology that they're not going to follow. So yeah, I hope many people read it and see where we are performing quite well, and the areas that we will be looking to improve on over the coming years. And down the track, we'll make a decision about whether we repeat the process in several years' time.
Thank you so much. And I think we also have a joint press release coming out this week, which hopefully will also help share the report, because of course the report itself provides really good levels of transparency for your ratepayers to feel informed and really get a good in-depth sense of what's going on. And through the independent evaluation, it's not just you singing your praises, but they can actually see that it was a robust process and that you are doing really well in many, many areas. So thank you very much for your time this morning, and looking forward to the development workshop. The beauty of these workshops is that we target them for every council to their needs. So if you would like to have a session that involves the whole of organisation, elected members, staff, ERT, we can work together to prepare an agenda and a structure that works really well, and we will give you some time to digest, come up with some priorities for yourselves that you want to dive into, and they can be different for different groups, or they can be the same ones. And looking really forward to moving into what's for me the most exciting chapter, which is the focusing on continuous improvement. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
And the recommendation is that the report be received and its contents noted. We have a mover. Thank you, Curtis, and seconded. Thank you, Sarah. Those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Wonderful. And thank you, Amelia. I know it was a substantial amount of work for you, so I am pleased that it was also enjoyable.
See the report you went on.
I will do that. You have to go. For those people who asked for it specifically.
Yes,
I'll send that out. Next item, which has been moved around just a little bit, is Commissioner for fast track hearing process.
Thank you.
Which is
Ka kite.
thank you. It's your our late paper.
Yeah. Hopefully you've all had an opportunity to read that paper. Anne and Fiona are here if you have any technical questions, but we are now, obviously, the fast track application's been lodged. Ex-retired Environment Court Judge, Miss Borthwick, is overseeing the process. They've had a convening meeting last week with the applicant and the other parties, us being one of the other parties. And part of that discussion was about how she foresees the selection of the panel to oversee this part of the process. And you know, look, we all know it's going to be a really complex application to go through. There's over 1,000 pages of really quite technical detail to be worked through. She has intimated that the panel will consist of 6 people, and possibly a 7th being a nomination from either Central Otago District Council and the Otago Regional Council. Now, we've just been advised today as well that Otago Regional Council will be nominating a panellist. And so the judge, the retired judge, she will eventually just select a nominee from the 2 councils. There's no requirement for her to select 2, and there's probably no requirement for her to select any if she feels that the makeup of the panel has the skills. You will see in that paper, we did cut a piece out of the letter that it's called, that her team sent us as to formulating our opinion on who we nominate. We have to have a nomination in with that office this afternoon, closes this afternoon. I expect a decision to be made probably not long after that, because the panel has to convene, I think, around the 11th of February. You'll see it is a really technical application, this one, that the panel are going to have to go through. So I think what we'll see, and it's there in that letter, but it'll be made up of experts in a range of fields and specialist fields that will consider the whole application. And she is also after complementary skills as well. And time is going to be of the essence. We don't know yet how long it's going to be. It's potentially anywhere between 60 to 130, 140 days. This panel will have to work its way through the detail. So there's going to be a significant amount of time pressure on the panelists to work their way through the detail, weigh up the competing arguments, and then write a report so that the panel can make a decision. But the judge has an expectation that anyone that is nominated, she nominates and the two councils nominate, have the ability to get stuck into that and to work in the whole process from the start to the beginning. And that's why she's given us some clear direction. She is looking for a specific skill set which might preclude our current nomination, might not. But so it's the chance here for the council to reconsider, because as it currently stands, we only have one nomination, and your resolution has been very clear. We are to nominate former councillor Neil Gillespie. Obviously, the regional council will not be nominating Councillor Gillespie because they won't nominate elected members into these types of roles. So the question really is, it's an opportunity now to for the council to reconsider that, because literally this is the last time that we can consider it, because we are quite keen to nominate, but as it currently stands, there is only one nomination, that is Councillor Neil Gillespie, and if that is the decision of the council, that's fine. The chances are, given the direction we've received from the retired judge, not exactly sure that she would select our nominee on that basis. So anyway, I put that forward to you. It's just because she's looking for a particular range of skills.
Thoughts?
Know who the ORC is going to be.
Potentially a geotechnical specialist is my understanding, because they feel that will help add to the level of expertise that the judge has sort of intimated that she thinks will make up the. We do have another name that we've used before, who's quite familiar with Central Otago and the issues that we deal with in the resource management area and that sort of stuff, and the planning stuff. So we do think we have a suitable candidate to nominate if that was.
Look, Neil is rejected by the chair, then, and we have another candidate in mind, then we really do need to have a very strong voice representing Central Otago. Then I would be support an approach to an alternative candidate.
And we only have one nominee.
I assume we can say the name, given that I've
I
circulated.
think if we can't make a decision, the judge will make a decision.
I think that's one of the things, and I have discussed this with Neil, because obviously things have changed since we nominated him, and he's now carrying out what is a substantial role as an elected member with another council. Neil is willing to remain our nominee if we wish. However, there are a couple of technical skills that the judge has indicated she will require, which might mean that Neil is not a preferred candidate for her, and that if we are looking at someone else, I think one of the things that we talked about is having someone who understands Central Otago and our people. There are a lot of specialist technical skills from, water and ecology and heritage and landscape and all the rest of it that the judge has indicated she will be looking for. Everything is about science. Some of it is about the people. And I think it is important that we have somebody who understands that aspect of Central Otago. Gary Ray is the name that we have potentially proposed as an alternative to Neil if need be. I have spoken to Gary to check that he wasn't on holiday in Europe or something like that at the time required, because it is going to be quite onerous. He is currently has been used frequently by us in the past as an independent commissioner for our hearings panel. He is very familiar with our district plan, and also with his role on the hearings panel. He is very familiar with what kind of consents are permitted in our area and what kind of things we've pushed back on, and where our people who have presented to him in the hearings panel process have said, these are the things that we would like to protect for Central Otago, and these are the aspects that are important to us. So I think although he does not live in Central Otago, he does also have a huge amount of expertise in the field as it relates directly to us and our current district plan. He does have the capacity, and he does have the skills required. So whether you want to think about I guess the indications that the panel convener has already said and whether we want to have a crack with a different nominee, especially since there may only be one and the regional council are also looking to nominate somebody.
I think it's important that the Neil has a lot of those skills, but in the real technical stuff, there will be people on both sides that have that technical. And it sort of feels like we've been pushed to a decision, or feels like he's not going to be good enough, but he is for the people of Central Otago. And I think it's important because it's a controversial situation we're going to the next 20 years with mine across the area. And I would hate to think that we don't have that real Central Otago push something so Central Otago is significant. Neil is the right person for it, and everyone at this time, every person is going to have skill that's better than somewhere else.
I think
He's the right person for it.
I think that Neil would also be, like Tony said, would be the first person to say, if I'm not the right person, then Gary would be an excellent choice.
Well, I don't doubt that. But in this situation, at this stage, our local resident deputy mayor, person who lives in our community, understands us from a kid, is that person. Because we could be technically taken out of everything in this council if we wanted to be. It's correct if excuse me, if Neil's turned out, we don't get a second chance, do we? So if Neil's turned down, we don't have anybody representing us. And the chair has indicated quite strongly that you need to have good skills at report writing at the end of this process. And that's the area where Neil's acknowledgement that he's weak in that area. And that could be the grounds. We don't, and that's a real risk. Chair's also got to understand it's a Central Otago issue. It's important to the whole of Central Otago. And yes, his report may not be as specific as a specialist in one part of that field, but it will be a report that'll be relevant to how he sees it on behalf of our community. Because there will be a lot
I
of
think it
people.
might be important for the people who are hearings panel members to cover off what is going to be required of the report, because we don't know. And you guys will know what is expected of that report writing and recognise that that is going to be a key aspect of the decision making.
Can we bring Anne?
And Fiona here to answer questions.
And Fiona, please. I guess my question is, in light of the report writing, can you guys share how you think that would be, how important that would be as a skill for that fast track hearing?
Significant. Critical.
Yeah. Critical.
In terms of some of the applications that have already gone through the process, it has been known that they've actually divided that function up amongst the panel members because the applications are so complex, so detailed. So some might actually be writing the conditions, others might be writing reasons for approvals. We've sat on a few webinars in terms of the flavouring around fast track post its implementation. It's only coming up a year now, the Act, but what we knew then versus what we know now is quite considerable. We've listened to the panel convener who actually oversees the fast track legislation. and she is assigned to making up those panels. We've also listened to two of the people beneath her who also assist making up those panels. And the reoccurring theme is the technical knowledge, that the timeframes are brutal, that the level of information that they have to get over is quite intense. For perspective, I would have to say that the application that we've got in our region is, if not the largest, certainly would be close to the largest in the country. It will be highly publicly profiled. The level of complexity with it, even in our own area, we've got about 10 experts that we're utilising. ORC have probably got similar, DOC have got similar, Heritage have got similar. So the information, although it's lodged at 9,000 pages, pretty much every agency has alluded that there is still information outstanding. So that's the level of detail that someone's going to get their head around. On the webinars, they've repeatedly said it's not about someone making up the numbers, because the volume of complexity and the time frame pressures, they're expecting everyone to pull their weight, and hence they have been dividing up that decision-making writing component of it. And so in terms of, just for clarity, it was raised whether we had invited the PI versus ORC. It wasn't clear when the legislation first came out, but the direction has been made clear subsequently that where there are two agencies, there will be one nomination that goes onto the panel. So the judge has the ability to choose either ORC or CODC's choice. And if there is the absence of anyone nominated, then she just chooses outright. So she'll be considering what her current panel makeup looks like tentatively, and then who CODC's choice is, and then who RC's choice is.
She's indicated quite clearly she doesn't actually care whether they've got making difficult decisions either. It's about the skills they bring to the table, so they don't necessarily have to be a commissioner. It's the focus is on the skills and their ability to work through the information. And from the conveners meeting that we attended last week, it's very clear that there are legal complexities as well. So it's not just about the application. There's quite a lot of legal complexity as well.
On that basis, I'm happy to move that we receive the report and accept the level of significance, noting that Neil Gillespie already has a substantial role representing our communities at the regional council, and the onerous amount of work that is coming and the technical skills required. I would recommend that B makes an alternative nomination to the fast track panel of Gary Gray.
No disrespect to Neil.
With no disrespect to Neil, and he certainly would be more than capable of sitting on any fast track panel, and he brings an incredibly unique set of skills, but just not perhaps the skills that we need for the specific application. Any further discussion on that? All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. I will now hand over to Sarah for community vision and experience portfolio.
Right.
I know. Right, hold on, let me find the right page. I can't work.
Let's save it.
I think that.
Good.
Right, 26.1.3, the proposed extension of Central Otago Museum Trust Performance Agreement. Okay. So, sneak on in the side, come on.
Good morning. This report to council is twofold. Firstly, it's to allow the trust an opportunity to present to the council the activities they've been involved in the past 6 months. And secondly, for the council to consider the extension of the performance agreement that council has with the trust. So I'd like to start by handing over, first of all, introducing the Central Otago Museum Trust Chairperson, Jane Lancaster, and Central Otago Museum Trust Coordinator, Rebecca Young. And Jane's going to talk you through comings and goings of the Otago Museum Trust.
Thank you very much, Mayor Tama, councillors, CEO Peter, for providing us this time slot and this opportunity. When do you have a point? Line goes there, doesn't it? So I'm going to apologise to the people on that side of the table.
That's right. I'll see behind you. Covered.
Oh, that's great. So this is our strategy delivery and accountability update. And we use the byline 5 museums, 1 region, and we're about strengthening the Central Otago museum sector. Follow please, Wayne. The 5 museums contribute to preserving the story, regional identity and community engagement in education. And we provided you with a background report, and I hope it's in your papers, with some information and background about all the museums. You will be familiar with the museum in your community, but you may not be as familiar with the other museums. And so that's some background information. What I want to talk about today is not to blow the museum's trumpet. I could spend a lot of time doing that, but I want to answer to you about what we're doing in our role of providing a network that allows the museums to collectively present the whole story. So in the performance agreement that we have with you, there are these deliverables to foster greater sharing of resources, to improve consistent policy development, enhance connections with visitors and community, and then there's an action plan of some specific agreed goals. So I'm going to talk through what we've done under each of these headings. And much of this information is in the report, and I've just pulled it out and put it into this focused way of responding to it. So we've worked towards shared governance and policy frameworks across the museums, and particularly for the COMT as well, that we have a better framework to work from. We've done a lot of work on collection management standards, and Rebecca's been at a workshop today over in Central Stories, where all the museums are learning better how to photograph their collection from a curation point of view. We've been collecting centralised data on the museums, the collections, the visitors, volunteers, risks and capability. We've been doing some work, volunteer workforce support, and also joint funding applications. So in the governance, we've been looking at robust administrative foundations, some basics like having a good Dropbox filing structure, meeting systems, draft policies. We've also, some of these such as governance, code of conduct, code of ethics, AI use policy. We've also completed the charities mission annual return. The collections, we've been particularly focusing on the data about the collections, and in your report there is some information we've collated about collection size across the museums that I believe hasn't been put together before. And that's given us a view of regional operations and capacity and gaps. We've updated the asset register, and we've worked with managers to understand what they think their gaps in capability are and how those things can be supported. For consistent policy development, we're supporting this through shared templates, policies and systems. Some museums have all of these, some museums don't. We've been building strong relationships with Te Papa, Toitu in Dunedin Museum, Central Otago District Museum Council staff, we thank them for that, and the Heritage Trust. We're also starting conversations with Tourism Central Otago and the Central Otago Regional Identity, opening pathways for what we hope is a strategic alignment with initiatives such as the Eden Hall Collection, and I'll talk about that a little bit more. A key achievement has been securing a collections management workshop in Alexandra in February. That's going to be led by Te Papa representative, and we've got around 25 people locally to attend that, so they won't have to go to travel to Timaru. We've also looking at the service. There's a program that's about museum certificates. It's a study program, NCA level, and we've been engaging with the Service IQ representative so that volunteers and staff can undertake this museum certificate and upskilling. Jay Trewin, the Te Papa Regional Museums Officer, has also visited the museums here for the first time. And so she now has us in her sights and supporting us, and she's helping us to develop other shops. We had workshops from Professor Gerard O'Regan from Dunedin Museum in Alexandra, Clyde and Cromwell, looking particularly at collections Taonga. Financial support has been provided for projects in Clyde, Maniatoto and Cromwell. In Maniatoto, this has included painting the Heritage Category Heritage 2 workshop shop in watchmaker shop.
And it looks beautiful.
So this is really important, and as you all know, with your communities, enhancing connections with visitors and community. So one of the areas we've been working on here is getting a coordinated regional website, because previously the information is spread across platforms and isn't really up to date. So that's been quite a major piece of work. We're trying to provide consistent visitor information and about events and exhibitions, and there's always a new exhibition at one of the museums. We're trying to have an integrated social media and professional imagery, education and research resources, and better regional storytelling. And I'll talk about the podcasts in a minute. So for 2026, our action plan, always there's getting your house in order and doing the basics right. So network coordination and systems, getting these policies, shared policies embedded. We're looking towards a district disaster management plan for the museums. This is something Te Papa is very hot about, because one of the museums in the country last year lost its collection through flooding. So we're starting on that piece of work. We are going to be doing a sector audit, and Paula will talk about that. And we're also always working on things like getting a contact database and consistent visitor survey tools. Professional development is really quite key. And some of the things we've been doing here, there's a collection management workshop, which I talked about in about 3 weeks' time, which will be at Central Stories. We're really looking forward to being able to arrange a textile care workshop with Jane Malthus. And that will tie in with the ideas we have about aligning with the Eden Hall exhibition, facilitating the easy delivery of this Service IQ training program. We're also looking to have a specialist contract support for individual museums. So this would be someone who would come in, or it might be a range of different people at different times, who would come in and work directly with museums on an area that they felt they needed upskilling. And this would be paid for by the Central Otago Museum Trust. Te Papa are going to, and Shay Trewin are going to help us in getting a job description and finding the right people. Digital and engagement, which I just talked about briefly. I particularly want to highlight here the education partnerships and the youth pathways. The educational pathway involves creating podcasts and collaborating with educators to ensure that the content we produce serves as a useful resource in schools. And we have a person, Kate, who's a teacher at Clyde, who's a member of the steering group. I suppose we want to put a lot of emphasis on that because, you know, one is conscious that the museums are an aging the people who attend museum functions do tend to be aging, but children love museums too. And recently, Central Stories has had 2 volunteers who are people in their 20s who are giving their day off to come and work in Central Stories. So Bug catches everybody, all age groups. The Young Pathways Initiative, we aim to try and establish a Young Friends of the Museum program. This is an idea from one of the museums, and we want to try and engage young people, spark their interest and involvement in the sector. We've considered implementing a system similar to a passport, where participants can complete activities to earn stamps or badges, allowing them to become part of a club. So this is an idea that we'll start to work out how we can take it forward. What we've called a foundational sector document, we've been really conscious that there's a lot of information that's not pulled together, and that in a sense we want to create a database about the size of the collections, what they are, how big the facilities are, what their governance, the risks, the visitor trends, future needs, so that we can look across this and take a sector-wide view about how we invest in museums. This database is overdue, and I think it'll help us to understand better the sectors and the needs. So some of the things that you are always a bit more exciting are things like exhibitions, and this is where we're working with Renelle Wing at CODC. She's managing the Eden Hall collection that's going to be around. And so what we're trying to do is to see when there is an Eden Hall garment or several garments at a museum, can we add to that by finding some of the textiles and the clothing from a previous century to have alongside, to kind of juxtapose fashion from different centuries and different textiles. We don't know how that's going to work yet, but it's work in progress, and I think it'll work in very well. And this will tie in very much with the Jane Malthus workshop on textile care. We're also very excited about the podcast project. This is a working group that's been formed to develop a Central Otago podcast series. It includes some things from the 100 Objects that was there last summer, so there'll be many episodes, but there'll be longer form stories. And the one that's being worked on as a pilot at the moment is the Clyde Railway disaster. Clyde Railway disaster.
And it's almost finished, and it is so cool.
Is that with Danella Hall?
Yeah, so Russell Garbett has sort of pulled together huge amounts of information and come up with a 30 or 40-minute podcast, which is just absolutely fascinating. And they're going to voice that, and that's going to be our little pilot podcast. We're going to put it out there on various platforms and see how it goes. But yes, he has definitely spoken to the people that he needs to be speaking to and pulled some great.
Danella, I don't know if they did interview Danella Hall. She was one of the last surviving members of it.
Yes. So part of that original interview with Danella Hall is included in the podcast that's coming up. Yeah. So there has been that integration. We are working with the oral history person as well. So we are making sure we're including all of those other stories.
Yeah, because if you haven't, I've got 20 minutes with Danella on the phone when we had tea one night with us and tell us all about it, because her father was the undertaker.
Yeah.
Took all the bodies back to Ramsey and the bread van and the supermarket. So it's quite an amazing story.
Sad.
Yeah.
Dreadfully sad.
And also as part of that, some of the actual items that are in the museums, like I think there's a railways cup
in the Naseby Museum,
saucer from the Naseby Museum, so that will be talked about as well. So it links in with the items as well as the whole history and the story.
So the podcasts are Central Otago history and stories that haven't necessarily been told across the region. But then there's the mini podcasts with the objects in the museum, and then other little podcasts, which we're calling pub tales. So they could be true or they could be not. And they're just like 5-minute bites, something to have a little laugh at. So yeah, there's 3 aspects to it. We might have to ask you, Stu, if you've got a podcast.
If you want to talk to my old man, he's got plenty of them.
Also talking about fire.
I've had it from him and I've had it from you. So.
Wayne, last slide, please. So thank you for your support to date, and we seek your continued support for the full realisation of the strategy for the long-term resilience of our museums and also for the maximum return of the investment that you have placed.
And just drawing attention to the recommendations in this report and for the consideration of extending the performance agreement that council has with the trust. I just want to reiterate that this is a sector-led trust and currently all the museums are community run. So this is based on people voluntarily giving their time to be involved. It's a complex and diverse group of museums. Everyone has slightly different ways of operating and different funding relationships with council. And the involvement of council in the trust is a grant that backs up their performance agreement, and for that sector generates collective activities on behalf of district-wide promotion and activation of their museums. Within this proposed performance agreement, there is a recommendation too that there will be a review done on the trust. The trust has now been running for 4 years, and it'll be really great to get that feedback from each of the members to see if it's working for them and what structures could be in place and what could be evolved, and to get that information back to elected members in time for EP. Questions?
When do you the council review this year? When do you think it'll be completed by?
We want to do it this calendar year.
Yeah.
So we'll, after today's meeting, we'll start planning it out how that will roll, and it'll be this calendar year.
I just wanted to acknowledge, Jane, the work that the trust has undertaken in what has been a period of sustained uncertainty for the sector, because museums have been at this table in one way or another for the entirety of my time on council, and I think most of the people around this table too, and yet we're still not at a really clear decision on what does it mean for council, for the museums, for the people who work there, for the ratepayers, for our communities. The minister has clearly said that museums are a core business of council, and we probably need to take that into account when we're looking at the long-term plan. Every time we've sort of suggested that maybe we would step our toe out of the water, we've heard so clearly from our people in the sector that actually this is really needed, and we do need to come up with a cohesive plan that is not this kind of piecemeal approach of, you know, a 12-month extension, because I think what the work that the trust is undertaking is really valuable for our people. So I'm hopeful that the long-term plan that is going to be enormous, I think, come 2027, because lots of what is happening for council will change, will hopefully have a really clear steer of the place of museums in our community and the place of ratepayers' contribution in that space as well.
Thank you. And I think this review that's planned is a really good opportunity to, in a sense, put everything on the table and look at it and look at what other people do, different ways that we could do things. I see it as really positive.
Yeah, Tamer kind of stole my thunder away.
She let me take my answer. You shut up.
So, I mean, obviously, I also want to acknowledge the huge amount of volunteer hours and things that go into this. But I do have, I guess my reservation is that we're 4 years down the track, and the whole reason when the sector came to us and said this is what we want to set up, I guess, like Tamer just indicated, we need a really good steer. And what I'm getting with all the work that you're doing, which is completely significant, it seems like there's another structure that's going to have to be a permanent structure. It's going to, because it's not going to be, and I guess, well, you've just mentioned that there is different entities. So within this 2 years, if we're going to have, are we going to end up with a report that absolutely states where that sits and how that's going to go. And I'm super conscious that the volunteers that are running all of these different entities now, in 2 years' time, they could be very different. It could be better, it could be worse, and you're dealing with a moving beast. And I'm just really concerned. I see what you guys are doing is really fabulous. It seems like you're doing a lot of driving. And for the money that you've got is very little, considering what you're being asked to do. So I'm not sure if there was really a question in there, but I guess like we need to know that at the end of this 2 years, we're going to have a really good steer, because we're 4 years down the track. So that'll be a 6-year project, I guess.
I share your, I think about these things too and share your concerns. And part of the reason why we're putting this database together is so that you've got some, you can look across consistently. I wonder if the terms of reference of the review that Paul has talked about, I wonder if that could be broadened a little bit, not just what we've done and how we're doing it, but what kind of frameworks or different structures or systems could you put in place to deliver on that? I just wonder if that's an opportunity to go wider.
And I'd just like to clarify that this review is on the sector for the sector, and it's not about council, because we've decoupled this 5 years ago, and the sector developed their own strategy and how they want to operate. So to help, this is about, is the sector happy with the way things are operating as a network? Do they still see value as a network? Would they rather be disparate? Would they rather have a singular? So that's to get that feedback for council to make the decision. So there'll be sector-led feedback for council, but not council structures imposed on the sector at this point. That makes sense.
Yeah, but there's still, I mean, look, at the end of the day, the bottom line is funding.
Yes.
However you want to slice it, it all comes back down to funding and how you're going to end up, where are we going to, I guess what would be really great to have a steer for us is that where it ends, how do you see it being financially viable for going forward? Just in the decreasing amount of money that we are, essentially putting out, and the increasing amount of work that you guys are having to do. So I guess that's the.
Or just running just to maintain the status quo.
And in line with what Tamer has indicated, that if it is a core business of council, and I think that's something that needs to be really clearly set out, is if the current structure works, then that's great. But if that's not what you guys as a review see happening long-term for the sector as a whole, then that's a discussion that you guys that will have to be brought back to us as a big piece of that puzzle.
I mean, I think about the value of the collections and none of them are insured. And we couldn't afford to insure them. But it's that, I mean, those are some quite cool things, really, and
you can't replace them.
Can't replace them.
Even if they were insured, as much as it's a horrible thing to think about. And I guess when we've had with the Otago Museum as well, we've had them come and say, well, if something happened, how would we ensure that the building was the best building that we've got to preserve what we've got? So there's other things around. I guess that's self-insurance policy, isn't it?
Well, and a lot of it is digital preservation as well, and that's one thing that really needs to. I mean, some museums are all over it, and other museums are just struggling because they just don't have enough support. So there is all of that we're looking at as well.
The Cromwell Museum moving into the hall, yes, changing potentially. Doing what it's delivering, how it's doing it, as well as physically moving as well as
all of those
the next.
If you did the wiring diagram, which I have sat down and done, it looks a very messy picture.
You don't do that. Sure. Eden Hall's insured though, isn't it?
It is under council's insurance.
Because we own.
Yeah. Although I guess to highlight how challenging it is for the whole sector, I did note in the paper, and I also received an email that somebody is swimming Cook Strait to raise money for a sprinkler system for Dunedin's museum. So People
That's what my husband said to me, read it out. And he, what are you going to do, Jane?
He tugs on people.
would like to swim the length of the Clutha River to raise museum trust.
As long as you don't have to start in the short time.
Concerned when you look at the shrinking budgets and making caps is that as long as you make sure that all museums at the moment are looking.
Yeah,
The real risk that I have, especially in Curtis, be the same, that if it becomes centralising, like everyone's trying to push it into, Naseby will lose its history, the Tibet will lose its history, the Goldfields part of what was there will be lost.
100%, Stu, and that is my real concern as well. Because our smaller museums are amazing. They are really amazing.
The stories we've talked about before have been driven by those faraway wee communities as much as they would be in Bannockburn and anywhere else. And the ratepayer, if they want to protect it, they pay for it. As simple as that. And the rates caps come along with him, and as long as the strategy and the understanding is that every little cemetery's got its own story.
Naseby Museum actually has one of the bigger collections out of all of our museums, interestingly, and it is that tiny little space, but it's got one of the biggest collections. So it's really interesting.
And I'll be the first to increase funding for museums as long as they manage in a system that keeps them there. I don't row with ratepayer over it, but if you want to live here because of that, we've got to protect it. I'm going to do that. Curtis will help me. Good boy.
Okay, so the recommendations in front of us, we have received the report, accept the level of significance. B, agree to extend the amended performance agreement between CRDC and Central Otago Museums Trust through to 30 June 2027. And C, resolves to allocate $50,000 to the Central Otago Museums Trust in 25-26 and 26-27 to enable the implementation of the performance agreement during these 2 financial years. Mover? Bob?
Yep.
Seconder? Tamer? All in favour? Yes. Carried. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Mother, her sister, who were on the train, and the train crashed. And the bits of her father was allocated to him to come out and then killed him on the side of the road. He said, "He's been killed in the train." He says, "I have 2 doors in that train. I don't know whether they were alive." And they're both sitting on the bank.
It's 26.1.8, use of tourism reserves. Ants and team.
Morning, everyone. Bringing you this paper today at the request last year through the long-term plan process around the remaining tourism reserves and some potential uses for those. The tourism reserve fund is a target, well, tourism is a targeted rate. So any reserves need to be used for the purposes of tourism and promotion of the district. The reason we ended up with a significant sum in there was through the COVID period where we received additional funding from central government, from MB. We prioritised the use of those funds in the time period that needed. And that meant we had an underspend in our balance. So the opening balance of the tourism reserves for 25-26 was $475,845. And checking with the finance team around the closing balance for the end of annual plan 26-27, it's anticipated that balance will now be $283,361. This paper is asking you to look to support the use of $280,000 of that towards 2 projects that are outlined. Those 2 projects, one is around an investment prospectus around key enabling projects in the district related to visitor experience and development, and leveraging the opportunities that are coming off the back of both council and private investment. So looking at what we can put together to kind of incentivise existing or new businesses to invest in hotels, campgrounds and associated visitor experiences. That project would involve using some outside contractors to help develop that. We've had a few discussions with some different providers. That part of the project would be looking to use around $20,000 to $30,000 out of the 100,000. The second part of that project is around creating a tourism accelerator or cluster program to work with existing businesses in the district, and how do we bring them in on a journey for enhancing their visitor experience, digital marketing and technology, use of technology that would give us case studies to then share with other businesses in the district, or again incentivise the development of their business and experiences. A similar program very focused in on technology has been run by QLDC over the last 6 months, where they picked or they opened up for businesses to apply. They picked 4 businesses who've had kind of some mentoring and support in enabling technology through their program. Our thoughts with this is we would look to have a regionally spread group of businesses or go out to get businesses to apply across different types of size and scale of business and across the district to be part of a structured program to support them. And most of the funds in that is in the coordination and the bringing in that outside expertise to support them through that program. The second project is also tied to a specific request around looking at a district-wide events fund. So this would be to establish a specific fund and then application process for events of a district-wide scale. Ideally looking to how we can attract or support 3 significant destination events to the district, which is in line with the Central Otago events framework. Also develop an event impact assessment that would be available for us to look at how events are impacting the district across areas, so economically, environmentally, socially and culturally. And then the other projects that are identified in the Central Otago events framework. So for that, we're looking at $30,000 towards the resourcing and setting up of that process, and $150,000 being set aside for that district's events fund. The process for applying and using that fund would need to come back to you, council, for approval on how that was going to work. We've seen examples over the years of events that are of significant scale to Central Otago that don't fit into our existing community board funds. This would be in addition to community funds, so it's not impacting boards. So examples we've had is where we've had the likes of Woolon and Blossom Festival at different times come in at a district level, or we've had events in multi-sport and the Crankbrooks Mountain Bike Series where we've found ways within funds, and that was again supported by some of that MB activity, but actually being able to define and look and work with event organisers that have got can bring significant impact to the district is something we'd like to be able to do. There is, because this is reserve funds, there's no additional rates impact. You are to support these actions, and within that, there is a range of options. They're either supporting both or one of those proposals, or neither, with consideration to there could be other opportunities that come in the future that we would not have reserve funds to be able to.
Can I just ask a question? Maybe I'm a bit of a new boy here, so when I was reading this, I was reading that Tourism Central Otago obviously has got staff employed by CODC, and these projects, it says, have been supported by the Central Otago Destination Advisory Board. I looked that up to find out, because I'm not aware of who those people are. And the latest I could find on that was that 5 people were appointed to that board on the 24th of November 22, and there were 3 roles yet to be appointed. That happened? Does that board still exist? Does the board meet?
The board does meet. The board exists. I sit on the board.
Yeah.
Alongside a number of other really high-powered individuals from the tourism sector.
Yeah.
Sadly, one has just left, but that was because he's gone to Tourism New Zealand. We also have a number of local representatives, including a youth rep from the high school, a local business rep, and a rep from Okaha. So
Kaitahu, not Okaha.
Kaitahu, sorry, Kaitahu, not Okaha. So we do have a full one.
We've got one role we will be recruiting for Chris Roberts' role, who's vacated because he's New Zealand, so that will be being.
So this is very much in line with what I was saying, you know, that the latest information on the council website says that there are 5 appointees, 24th of November, 3 still to be, still 3 to be.
I'm not saying that this is correct, but it'll be, we've got the centralotagonz.com website, which has got the information on the advisory board, which is up to date, but obviously we have omitted to update on the CODC website itself.
On our council website to the Central Otago NZ website, so the information can be more accurate. We did have last year, so on a semi-regular basis, at least the chair of the board and some of the other board members come and present to this council, but it would have been prior to the election, just prior to the election, wasn't it, that they came to?
So
they do come back to this table to report on what they do.
I mean, I'm just simply asking the question because I didn't understand who that board was.
Well, it would be helpful when you went to the website, there was information that was not 3 or 4 years old.
Yeah.
Thanks, Bob.
So what is option 1? What is the perspective? What are you going to get out of that? Where does the tourism benefit from that?
From the investment prospectus component or the
what is that?
business?
What does it mean?
So we're wanting to collate the information and data that will support businesses looking to invest in the district. So the key example of this has been the discussions around hotel and potential hotel investment in Cromwell in relation to the facility beside the lake. And what we get there is you get little bits of interest in there, but we kind of get different angles and different questions.
And we don't, we sort of have little pockets of information to give them, but nothing, you know, in a complete document that has been put together by a credible source as well. So this is really assembling of the data to make that.
The tourism is subsidised in the potential development. Would you sell that information? It's our information.
You would make it available to encourage that investment to come into the district or happen.
But would they not be getting that information if they came and sat at your table now and said, well, what's happening in the growth figures or the helicopter view? Like, is it not economic development rather than the tourism budget?
Just got someone with his hand up, behind you who knows quite a bit about it, and Sarah can't see him because he's behind Bob.
Because he's you've got to put your hand up high, Dylan. That's better.
Just jumping in, so I had a conversation with the consultant who does this work, and I suppose the best comparison I can give you is going through this mechanism, which is a consultant, is like using an executive search firm who have all the contacts and the networks within the sector around developers and investors in hotels, or you put an ad on Seek and see who turns up. And I think when we've got some money sitting in the reserves, the better option is to go to the people who've got the network, know who the investors are, know who the developers are, know who, you know, we can tell them what the brief is, what we're looking for, and they can go out and find those people for us.
Yeah.
So it's not just a prospectus, that's part of it, but it's actually what we're buying is the consultants network.
Yeah, and I guess that comes down, is it economic development? Because what worries me is you've got a pot of money, which we haven't got a lot of pots of money in some of these things. I totally agree with the establishment of district-wide events fund application because the likes of the Cavalcade, the Heritage Cavalcade need a capital investment. They can put that in and pay it back. I love that idea. I think it's great. But if I was going to invest in Cromwell or Motorsport Park or something, I would go to the places to get that. And it is a tourism budget when you've got a surplus to be doing that. And yet. And even training, like I'm not sure if you're in that industry, is it up to the services of council to start training private business and being how to serve someone a pie? Because the reality is, it's your private business. If you run a business, it's up to me to train my staff as it is this organisation. And to have a surplus when you've got a lot of events that contribute to the community, because it's come out of reserve, some of it mainly from the COVID fund, but lots of Blossom Festival investing into that. Like, I'm just saying, is it the right pot of money?
That's the options.
Because economic development arises other things that, like, it's tourism money, so it wasn't that long ago people saying, do we need a tourism part in our council? Is it core business? And yet we've got a surplus that could be filtered quietly through the community and tourist things, or whether it be
I think one of the things that I look at when I look, because I had some thoughts like, is this the appropriate thing to be spending money on? At the end of the day, we spend a lot of money developing a destination management plan that had key outcomes that we said we were looking to achieve. And as part of that, we have a destination advisory board made up of specialists with the skills that we wanted to attract, who have said, this is the sort of thing you should be spending money on to achieve the aspects that you said, the outcomes that you were looking for in your destination management plan. So recognising that I don't think any of us, with the exception of probably Stu, have a large amount of knowledge in the tourism sector, that when we have specialists giving advice against a policy that we have in place or the plan that we have in place that has been through this council, when the opportunity comes and they say this is the sort of thing you should be spending money on, yes, it's right that we look at it and say, is that the right thing to be spending money on? But also I think it's important that we recognise that those are not necessarily specialist skills that we hold and have outsourced some of that.
And I guess the part down the back line, you look what Ruston and Tanya are doing in Ranfurly, if they went to tourism, so there's not a budget there for something that's new and innovative and using it, even all of the museum part. They go, oh, there's no budget there, but yet we're quite happy to be taking it to a database, what you're doing. And then down the road, we're going to have all those tourist operators that have been waiting for the tourists to grow are going to be stuck with the tourism bed levy. We're going to be taxed again. And then the surplus is sitting here there that could not offset that, but allow the soften those small tourist events. And those ratepayers we're going to be rated on a levy to go on capital projects. And it's like, well, I understand that the more information we've got, and if a developer wants to come along from Australia and build a hotel in Roxburgh, they do their own due diligence. They can get that information. They get it, probably New Zealand Tourism Board.
Due diligence and all those things are not part of this at all. Developers will come in and investors will come in and do their own due diligence. This is purely going out and targeting key investors and people top of it. Be targeting key investors, developers, to bring them into the region, to sit down at this table and say, this is our proposal.
If we didn't have the surplus, would we be doing it?
Yeah, that's my question too.
Or would be coming to us and say, look, this is a proposal we're developing in time, we'll put out the rates a long-term plan. I guess the surplus is, nothing wrong with that, but it's fallen out of a lot of other things. Is the tourist operator that's been struggling in the last 3 or 4 years after the COVID, have they been topped up and running perfectly well, or is it the next stage? Because a lot of those businesses, you look at the rail trail, mainly on the rail trail, those hotels, those businesses haven't pulled ahead. And some of them are struggling, some of them are shut.
And I think this is why this is a bit piece there, and that there was the looking holistically at what is those big investment opportunities, and that other component to that program around that business support product that accelerator type training opportunities, we do have, and I think it was discussed at the last update I did at this table around, how do we support those existing businesses there? After this, I'm going out the Rail Trail Trust and New Zealand Cycle Trail are actually running a visitor experience workshop today themselves out in Aotearoa, which I'm due to go out to. So again, it's kind of what they learned from that session. If you choose to support this might be able to then take that next step for them from what's been identified through that.
Both projects do pull out of the destination.
And the investment case is aligned to, we had a bigger piece in there around what is that tourism development master plan, around where and what do we want. So again, it's a stepping stone towards that.
I'm not arguing that you can't justify either of these. Where I'm at is, are we just looking to spend the money because it's there, same as Stu, versus should we be going, if it wasn't there, would we be coming and asking for,
We did ask, this comes out of a resolution where we asked
Right.
Peter to go away and explore options to spend the reserves, so.
Yeah, so then my second point would be is we don't know what's around the corner. We don't know if there's another COVID or whatever natural disaster that may impact our tourism sector and whether we be prudent to have some reserves left behind in case of something in the future.
My understanding is Saskia might want to jump in. My understanding is that we ideally shouldn't be sitting on a reserve. So whilst ideally you do in business to save something for a rainy day, by the fact that it is rated now, the steer has been that we should utilise it.
That's absolutely correct, because we've taken that money out of our ratepayers' accounts into the living account. So it's generally in terms of accounting principles. So Paul would explain it way better than me. But in essence, it's not a good practice, and that's why if you guys think about funding, it's always got to be tagged to something we go out and of course it's covered in its paper. Is the other option is to not spend them. You could look to soften rates through the LTP with that as well is another option for you. But
which is a challenge, because to say that means that the businesses who didn't survive previously are then subsidising the businesses who have still there. And I think that is also wrong. The reason it is there is because we were given some extra money from the government across COVID, and so we didn't spend all of the money that had been collected through rates.
always a challenge if you use it to offset rates, as there comes a point where you then have a big jump up, because then you have to fully rate. So that's always, with caution that you do something like that.
Then technically some of this money has not actually been rated for. It sits in the tourism reserve, but it was a contribution from the government. So that money was spent.
And we didn't spend the rates, Tracy?
So just, if we just look at project one, and just jumping through to the accelerated part in the program, I actually quite like the idea that you're going to bring in outside expertise to look at that. But was that, I just don't know whether I heard you correctly, was that only for a select group or was that for the whole lot? Because I heard you say something about doing that, the mentoring that's happening in Queenstown.
So the way we've been looking at this is you'd still want kind of those targeted engaged people. We've seen other programs that have been quite broad blast, centrally government funded. People turn up and they're not as invested. So if we could find a range of business types, size scales, dispersal across the region, and kind of create that cluster of people who are kind of going, hey, we're all on that same journey together. So it would be open to all to apply, but then we would look to kind of go, right, well, actually, where is best value investment going to come from this? But out of the back of it, have some written case studies or profiles so that we can show, hey, here's how this engagement made a big change for this business, so that it can hopefully inspire others.
Yes, that, I mean, look, and with our farming business, I am a recipient of being part of some of those programs, and it would be, you've got two things. If you don't include everyone, then some people will feel that that council is giving those guys an edge, right? Which, however, on the flip side of that, which I get, is that if you choose the right people to be part of that, they will hopefully impart that knowledge and be part of a program that actually gets the information out there to a wider group of people. How that's not something that I'm going to try and fix here, but that's quite a delicate balancing act.
And it is very much the latter there, Tracy. So all businesses that are tourism facing would have the opportunity to nominate themselves, put themselves forward. They'd go through a bit of a selection criteria, and part of that is that commitment to share that knowledge of those gains that they make through the project. So then those learnings do flow through the rest of that business community.
There's some form like a mentorship kind of
so we
opportunity there, like those businesses that have had the benefit of that. You could tag in people that are a bit newer, a bit greener maybe, and
it could be. It's really about trying to get those results on the board first of all, and then share that information. Whether that information is best shared through a mentorship or a case study, or what we probably haven't quite.
That's all. Probably Stu's point is that like those
that aren't in the benefit. So making sure there is a flow through there is probably the most beneficial spend, isn't it? That flow on.
My second question, sorry,
I've got a second question after you, please.
the event fund. I mean, look, we all know there's never enough money for those events to come in, and sitting around a community board table and things, it's actually really disheartening when you have to say no to somebody. You know that it's, you know, there is a great opportunity. But this is a finite pot of money. Got any ideas on how you would grow that pot of money, how excluding any money coming from ratepayers? I'm just not, whatever, please don't pick up that I'm trying to get ratepayers to pay for this, but what I'm saying is.
I think probably the best example in terms of leveraging that as well is last year through the government tourism boost funding. They had an additional regional events fund that events could apply to, but they needed committed funding from local government. None of our events that wanted to apply to that could, because of timelines and the size and scale of event that the government wanted, and also that we didn't actually have a fund that they could even tap into. So there would potentially, depending obviously on directive from MB or central government, be other opportunities there where you could be leveraging that investment.
That sounds quite positive.
I just wondered on the resourcing and project costs to support the delivery. Is the mechanism that we currently use for our promotions and community grants not going to be sufficient to support that? Would there not just be an extra tab added to that of a district-wide grants process?
So there's initially designing what we need it to be in terms of pieces, and that's where we'd probably get some outside advice and just look at what's working with similar size regional tourism organisations or councils to figure out how that's best used in our situation as CODC. So it's that early piece, but then actually once it came to an application process, your options I think would be running through a similar form process that comes back to you here at council. The other angle that could be taken and would be researched would be if council was comfortable that it'd be like use a portion of this fund to go and identify the event directors you want to work with and actually be more, again, like the investment case, be more proactive when going. We might want major running event to come and be based in Central Otago that can't then move away.
Not an international knitting convention or something.
But I think it's fair to say some of these larger events do require more work to help sort of facilitate. But then there's also responsibility and expectation on that reporting back from that benefit of that event too. So that's something that we're trying to work.
So with your events fund, is it like a float? Like the Cavalcade had that, where the trust would give you, the Cavalcade may want to go to Roxburgh, but so the group in Roxburgh starting up the Cavalcade haven't got the capital, so they could, what the Heritage Trail, the Cavalcade Trust did would give you the community the $30,000 float. At the end of it, that float went back to the Heritage Trust. Does it work like that, or is it just a gift?
We haven't got to that level of detail, so that was kind of, we wanted the direction of whether you wanted it, but that would be part of coming back of kind of going, actually, is it
just
a direct investment and it's gone, done, or is it actually, yeah, how do we utilise that fund in different ways? And that kind of seed funding example be one of those options.
And I guess it's how do you measure that support or success of this down the road?
And that's again from the event side is actually getting that event impact analysis, which is something try and get a consistent process across small and large events. So those parts of the event framework that we'd like to put some more time and energy and resource into reflect across all types of events, not just those big significant.
I'm just going to ask a little bit of a, David, you might stick your head up on this one too. A little bit of a contentious question. With some of this stuff that you're talking about, would that be essentially necessarily the prospectus, but the having someone who's driving the attraction, would that be something that the new person who will be running the facility by the lake entity, would that be something that that would be part of their ambit? Because depending on what you're looking for. Because then you're looking for Central Otago as a whole, but it would be driven out of somewhere, as in someone who's slick enough to drive that event management or event fraction, I should say.
So what are you saying? Does it correlate to the whole?
Good opinion, I think they've got an opinion.
Well, get your opinions brief.
Maybe
people.
Ed's can start.
I see it being that regionally significant thing. The hall is a major catalyst for this would be. I think the team that will be in the hall or facility beside the lake, have got a significant piece of work to do in their own instance. So I think actually at the moment that would be a distraction from it. But again, they would need to work in with that team to kind of go, right, what are you targeting? What kind of things? Therefore, what do they see as the opportunities or gaps in Cromwell that would support them to succeed? And same thing for our other regional businesses to succeed off the back of them.
We align there. It just, I think the hall's probably vertical, and what Ants is proposing is much more horizontal. And
sorry for the divergence.
That's a great question. Thank you. Bring it in.
There are three options at this stage. We support both projects, we support one for the other, or we support neither. Recommendation is to support both projects. Do we have any feeling on whether where we're going? The other?
Happy to. If that we support both projects
Both.
on the basis that, while recognising there is always something that we don't know about coming around the corner, it's also not good practice to have reserves sitting in our accounts because we've rated for them.
Is this the most prudent spend of the reserves that are sitting there to do what we're supposed to be doing and spending that money?
Well, if it's tourism related and it comes back through into the tourism, it's
Yes.
different than economic development or the hall if it's other projects. But if the hall is a mechanism for driving tourism and facilities, then it's the right place. But we're told we've got to cut our cloth and we've got reserves, and we've got to make sure that we get the right bang for the buck. The ratepayer gets their money out of tourism back. As long as that is the outcome in tourism, because if it is driven in one region, the rest of our region has to have it as well. Like it's going out to the rail trail and and if they turn around and say we want to do a marketing campaign just to New South Wales because it's got as fast as growing in the southern way, have bought the new flights into Central and into Dunedin and Queenstown, is it going to be a 16% return on the $100,000 compared to 4 and hoping the business comes? That is always a budget, no matter what you're doing.
What's the percentage split in project one between the two bullet points?
The estimate is that it's probably about 25 to 30 in that investment vectors piece in terms of getting the initial piece of work done, then getting it designed up and kind of as Dylan said, then that.
So the accelerator and the training and all those, that side is the priority?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll be happy to second that. Second payments.
More discussion in that case. Recommendations are A, to receive the report, accept the level of significance, and B, approve that 280,000 from the tourism reserves account funds identified projects 1 and 2. Yeah, all in favour? Any against? Carried. Thank you. I can talk real fast now.
Yeah, I better get to it.
Hope you're not asking for money.
I'll be on 33. She's 28. Thanks, Cheryl. Can't read today. Can't cope with this moving around.
No, find your page.
Making it hard work. Goldie, talk to us about cemeteries quickly. Sandwiches are going stale.
Get the lunch or something. So this should be a quick report. So the current bylaw was adopted in 2020.
now requires its 5-year review. So we need to go out for the special consultative process again. We're suggesting only one change to the bylaw specifically, but to the handbook, which is on page 5 of the handbook. So that was that specific burials required for religious beliefs outside the, I guess, the normal operating times may be undertaken prior with prior arrangement by council. So that allows us to a bit of flexibility with like some Muslim burials and other things. So it's, you don't get a lot of, but if they come along, some flexibility
for that.
to do that. Yeah. So we just, yeah, that's what I need to say. Happy to answer any questions.
Anybody, anything?
So if you did have to have a burial on public holiday or Sunday, would you have a specific charge for that? Or-
Yeah, there's additional charges because of the contract extra costs and things like that.
It's an out of hours.
We try not to do those if we can because, you know, contractors also need time off and the availability of staff. Not all staff can dig graves and undertake burials. So there's a bit of a process to go through. So we try and manage that before the days are locked in.
Where you say there's no financial implications, the consultation costs are built into just normal BAU.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyone else?
I guess it's pretty unlikely, but if you had a Muslim burial, for example, at the Nevis Cemetery, you'd be able to change that 3 working days notice or not?
So that's that clause gives us an out. So they usually get there in 8 hours, 24 hours, sorry.
Yeah.
So we need to do that. It's really hard to put a whole lot of specific times and things in a bylaw or a handbook. So we've just tried to have a board statement that allows us to flexibility to do what we need to do.
I'm happy to move.
So recommendations A to F, you can all read them if you.
Yep.
Joseph move, have a seconder. Cheryl, all in favour? Against? Carried. Nice and good. You win the speed prize today. But you can stay there. And 26.1.5, the reserve land development contributions policy. What are you changing on us?
So this is just a report for information that the reserve land development contribution was levied through the long-term plan, and I guess our board budgeting is not quite there for us to isn't showing any land purchase requirements from the council on the 10-year plan. So what we're saying is that we refund any that we've already levied, and we will review, council can review this through the next long-term plan. So we're putting on hold of the meantime. That's what that's saying, actually.
And that's straightforward enough to refund those under 20k. It's not a huge amount, so that's doable.
Straightforward enough to reinstate it. If your board budgets,
Yes, we need to put some work into our long-term plan budgets to, if we need. And
you can, you can bring that straight back in that reserve. If you put it on hold now.
Yeah, well, no, council, we'll put it on hold, but council will need to reapprove that because it approves these things through the long.
We don't need to go out and consult on reinstating it or.
Don't think so. It'll be just part of the consultation of the LTP, is there?
Yes, so that development contribution is for the document that we consult on, but how we do it is part of the package. So when Gordy does his work, we'll go it through the LTP, and then we'll part of the consultation.
I can just a little bit more. So there's 2 mechanisms in policy for charging around reserves. One of those is the development contribution. One of those is the financial contribution. What on top of that is giving land in lieu of a payment. So the development contribution, land in lieu, is designed for those big greenfield developments because we want the land to provide for parks. Whereas for infill and smaller developments, we already have awesome reserves and green spaces within those sort of areas that we don't need to. On those hits, there's no budget and the full plan for purchase of new land for those areas that have been developed. So that's where the charge and the policy allows for using the financial contribution, not the development contribution. So it's more of probably a collaboration with council around how development contributions and financial contributions being levied. No change needed to the policy because it allows for it. And it's just more that when it was introduced, there was some charges done under the development contribution, not financial contribution. Just a tidy up.
The recommendation is just that the report be received. Contents noted. Anybody else? No, good. Mover? Yes, seconded. Tracy? All in favour? Against? Carried. Got it. Right, it's Maria's turn. 26.1.6, notice of intention to prepare the Cromwell Ward and Vincent Ward Reserve Management Plans.
Kia ora everyone. Today we've got a relatively straightforward item, but an important one in terms of how we plan ahead and manage our reserves in the district. Just as a bit of a fun scale reference too, before we get into it, the total of the reserves of the two plans that we're looking at comes to 252 hectares, give or take some bad maths in the corner over there. So that's roughly 3/4 of New York's Central Park. So it gives you a bit of a sense of the scale of what we're dealing with here. And saying that, it's around 21% of our district's reserve land. So, a reserve management plan is required under the Reserves Act for some types of reserves. It's essentially a rule book for how a reserve is managed and used. So in simple terms, it gives council and the public a clear framework for what can and cannot happen on a reserve. This work sits within a broader planned approach that we've been taking across the district. So rather than preparing our plans one by one in a reactive way, we have been looking strategically at how to program and structure them so that the process is practical for council, efficient staff, and clearer for the community. In the Maniatoto and Teviot Valley wards, we already have ward-wide reserve management plans. So these plans, they cover reserves within each ward under one framework. This approach allows us to address multiple reserves at one time, and it provides more consistency, reduces duplication, and is less complex for the community to engage with than multiple separate plans. It also helps us avoid over-consulting on individual sites when broader issues can be considered together. So in Cromwell and Vincent right now, there's maps of existing reserve management plans and reserves that do not yet have an up-to-date plan. The approach proposed today is to bring a large number of those reserves together that don't yet have an RMP into two new ward-wide reserve management plans. And all of those pieces of land have been listed in the appendices. So what we're asking you to do today is to resolve to begin preparing two ward-wide management plans, one for Cromwell Ward, one for Vincent Ward, and to delegate the respective community boards to hear submissions and make recommendations on the draft plans. This is the start of the formal process. Public consultation is built into that process, and there will be formal opportunities for the communities to have their say on the draft plans, and the community boards will hear the submissions before the final plans are brought back to council for adoption. So that's it. Happy to take any questions.
Questions?
Will those two plans be notified together?
Depends on how we go with writing of them. Note two.
Just thinking about the consultation. If they're notified together, will there be consultation on both plans or consultation on plan individually? Although they're probably going to be pretty much the same anyway, aren't they?
And the focus will be each ward really, because some of the little wards. Not quite a district wide, but the main focus will be from Cromwell. So there was.
We're still working through the details, but that could be a really good approach. If we can, but depending on the, there's a lot of information in those plans. So it'll be one step at a time.
Yes.
I like that.
Yeah, just, I guess my just question is that just making sure that this doesn't affect what's going on from racecourse.
No, it's got its own reserve management.
Yeah, that's what it's own, like you said in the report.
So at this stage, we don't have any plans to pull any existing existing plans.
Covering those reserves that don't have one at the moment.
I think there might be one reserve on the list that was due for a renewal, but everything else is
Like 25 years on. Tidy them up.
Let's tidy up of the surrounding
reserves.
Good. Thank you. In that case, recommendations A to C, that we're agreeing and we're authorising the community boards to hear the submissions for their respective plans. I'll move that. I'm second. Taylor, second. All in favour? Against? Yes. Very good. Thanks. And the last one for me, 26.17, adoption of Central Otago economic strategy 25 to 35.
Perfect. Excellent. So yeah, as Sarah said, this is about the adoption of the new economic development strategy. By way of background, the economic development strategy, the initial community engagement comprised of just under a dozen workshops around the community, an online survey that had about 200 responses, plus engagement with mana whenua. That input all came in and went into the writing of the draft strategy that was undertaken by an independent consultant. That draft then came to council for approval to go out for community engagement, again, which was really to check in to say, hey, we've gathered up your thoughts, we've written it down, does this sound about right? So now we're presenting that engagement back, a couple of minor revisions to the strategy as well for adoption, and then we will essentially put it into action and come back with a work plan, 12-month work program at the next council meeting. Happy to take any feedback. I had been hoping to have Deb from our comms team with me, who wrote the report summing up the community feedback and the submissions on it. We received 18 submissions in total. 15 of them came through the Let's Talk program, and then we had sort of 3 written submissions. Personally very happy to get the support of mana whenua come through. That was noted in there, and also with Business South they submitted as well, noting that they supported the target, the intent and the direction of the strategy, and making feedback as well. When it comes to the recommended additions to the strategy, with the consultation period, there's a sort of a theme around being cautious around overdevelopment and retaining our sense of place and environmental concerns as well. And that could partly be off the back of some of the large projects that could potentially happen in the district as well going forward. The strategy talks about sustainability. It is aligned with our regional identity, our values, our district vision. But just to try and sort of re-emphasise what is sustainable, I've recommended incorporating a definition of sustainable development, and that's the same, it's a United Nations definition, it's the same definition that we use in our organisation sustainability strategy, so it's consistent there. And also there was another one that came through around people wanting to be aware of these large projects, and while it's not necessarily our job to communicate to them, we could make sure it is top of mind to be encouraging organisations to be communicating and engaging our community. And then there are a number of other points of feedback that really came through that would fall more into individual projects and the work plan and the prioritisation of work too. So I'm happy to take any questions.
First of all, I just want to say, and this was tied into when from the Te Korawai report, it said right up on the front page, it said that we are 0.5% of national GDP. That's what Central Otago chooses. Then when you look at our population base, we're 0.0048 of the population base. So clearly we are punching well above our level for our population. However, I really appreciate the work that you've done, and there's a few things that I just wanted to make sure that you're happy with. For will give us the confidence is, one of them is, given the low number of respondents, are you happy that you've got a wide picture? And that may be, I don't know, with some of the workshops and things that you've done anecdotally, I don't know, just if you could explain, just make sure.
Yeah, good question. I would have loved more responses. But as we know, there's been a number of engagements going out to the community, and I'm comfortable with the strategy based on the initial engagement level that we got when we went to the community workshops and did the online survey and things like that. And I think it's at that early stage of engagement, it's a lot easier to get a higher number of responses too, because you're asking sort of wider, more holistic questions. Whereas then when we go back to consult on a 40-page strategy, it's not everyone's cup of tea to sort of dive into that, this and that. So I feel comfortable with it, but noting always would love more engagement. That's what it is. Yeah.
I make a comment on that. Some of the submissions that we received were outstanding, and this wasn't people going through the Let's Talk platform and saying yes, no, maybe, and perhaps putting a comment. I had a gentleman from Australia who doesn't even live in our district. He lives in Australia. He has a holiday home in Queenstown. I'm not even sure how he came across it, but somehow he got a copy of it. Him and his wife drove from Queenstown to spend an hour with me talking about what a great strategy and how aspirational it was. And he was, a retired gentleman, but quite a high flyer from, he'd owned listed companies and all sorts of things. And he was talking about some of our aspirations, especially around lifting our wage average. He was I've never seen someone put something that aspirational and that direct in a strategy like this. Usually they're quite airy-fairy, and he was very complimentary of the strategy, and that gave me the faith that the people that we were hearing from, a lot of them really knew what they were talking about and had quite a lot to say, and it wasn't a tick box exercise for them. So seeing engagement from some of those sectors, and then the likes of Business South and that as well, I think that the numbers were not as high as we might have liked, but the quality of the feedback that we got from them, I think, was really great.
I don't think I could have ever imagined that I would get so excited about reading something like that. But I did. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a great report, very interesting, and I couldn't put it down.
Well done.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, get out. On that, I don't think. Does anybody have anything that's more complimentary than that? Right. Recommendations: receive the report, accept its significance. Resolve to consider the submissions of the economic development strategy and adopt, subject to those amendments, the proposed economic development strategy for 25 to 35. To have a mover.
Move it, haven't I?
You better. Bob is moving it.
Yeah.
Vehement. Stu, second. All in favour? Against? Carried. Excellent.
Thank you.
Lifted to finish on. Good stuff. Me?
Standard
Sharing,
cheering, Sarah.
people.
Well done.
You've
And
talked
thank
a
you
lot.
to the team who came and then spoke very fast. So we now are going to break for lunch, and we will retain our original schedule and just cut that short by a few minutes. And we will be back here at 1:15. Thank you very much.